सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Every year in August, a group of policymakers, economic thinkers, and leading economists gather at the Jackson Hole, a valley area in the mountainous surroundings of Wyoming in the United States, to discuss economic issues, implications, and policy options pertaining to the symposium topic. This year, the group will be discussing reassessing constraints on the economy and policy. This symposium is conducted by the United States Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, and is hosted by the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City at the Jackson Lake Lodge. Only about 120 people attend the event every year, but the publicly released papers and speeches, as well as media engagements with policymakers, have made this economic policy symposium a landmark event for central bank watchers and investors who participate in the event from as far as Japan. The three-day meeting began on Thursday, August 25th and will conclude today. This year, the event will be closely watched by investors across the globe as Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell will be making his remarks on the current economic scenario amid decades of high inflation in the United States. It will be the first physical meeting after the COVID-19 pandemic. So let us understand what is the significance of this meeting called the Jackson Hole Economic Policy Symposium. While it doesn't have much relevance for India, it has increasingly become a global event which is keenly watched by the global financial markets and policymakers and even regulators who use this platform to announce important policy decisions or introduce new ideas that set the directions for policy making. For instance, in 1997, then Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan spoke about global markets where there was a currency crisis in Asia. Greenspan made a brief mention of Mexico in those remarks, which led to the Mexican stock market stumbling on fears the Fed chair was signaling a spillover of the crisis to the global financial system. The Fed had to later clarify that Greenspan was referring to the Mexican peso crisis of 1994 and not to some emerging new issue. In 2019, Fed Chairman Jay Powell delivered a speech in the middle of then President Donald Trump's campaign, which reprimanded the Fed into cutting interest rates. Trump assumed that Jackson Hole meeting was also a policy-setting meeting and expressed his disappointment that Powell's speech did not coincide with the decision to lower interest rates. Trump famously responded to Powell's speech asking whether Powell was a bigger enemy to the nation than Chinese President Xi Jinping. In 2008, officials at the event grappled with a deepening financial crisis, and in 2014, then European Central Bank President Mario Draghi led the groundwork for a bond-buying campaign to stimulate the European economy. Now this year too, the market would be waiting for Powell's speech to look for any indications of the pace and quantum of the interest rate hikes by the central bank. Powell's speech will be read in the backdrop of global economies reeling from the effect of multiple shocks, the coronavirus pandemic, a massive fiscal and monetary policy response, and the fallout from Russia's war in Ukraine. The symposium will explore the emergence of economic constraints during the pandemic, including potential limits on the economy to supply goods and services in the same ways that were possible before the pandemic. So why is this symposium conducted specifically in Jackson Hole? The idea to have a forum for discussion was originally conceived in 1978, but it was limited to discussions on agricultural trade. Over the years, the Kansas City Fed made efforts to broaden the scope of the conference to general policy matters. In 1982, the Kansas City Fed wanted to pick a venue that would force the Fed chairman Paul Volcker to move out of his base in Washington, D.C. Knowing that Volcker enjoyed fly fishing, the Kansas City Fed originally sought to hold the event in Colorado, but the timing of August led them to pick Jackson Hole. The event has been consistently held there since, although the COVID-19 pandemic forced the event into a virtual format in 2020 and then again in 2021. That's all from me. This is Shubham Batra for ThePrint. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook.